Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our presentation about trust and safety at Replit. My name is Alan Kyle. I'm a member of Replit's trust and safety team. And today we're going to be joined by my colleagues Malcolm and Lincoln. We'll be talking about some of the exciting things our team has built in order to protect our users, which are your students. Now, nothing's more important than the well-being of our community of hackers. And so I hope that comes through in the slides that we run through today. In this presentation, we'll discuss what trust and safety is, our content policies for protecting children, and some of the technology we've implemented in support of our operations. And then after all that, we'll have some time to answer any questions you may have. And then just a quick programming note is that we had a small mix-up, and so we won't be hearing from district admins as a part of this presentation. So I'm sorry if that was something you were looking forward to. All right. So first, I'd like to kick us off with a small interactive exercise. I'd like for you to think about this question, which is, what are some things you might do to maintain good behavior among your students in the classroom? And I'd love for you to go ahead and please share your answers in the chat, and I can shout some of them out. So I don't know if this is happening on my end, but I can't see, or maybe we have a shy audience, but I can't actually see anything in the chat. But maybe just to give some examples, some things that teachers might do are to, for example, communicate the rules of the classroom. You might want to address bad behavior as soon as it happens, or you might even want to provide incentives for good behavior. And as it turns out, there are a lot of parallels between classroom behavior and online behavior. And there are a lot of similar methods that are used in classrooms that are used by us at Replit. So as teachers, you already sort of have an intuitive understanding of the kinds of work we do in trust and safety. So now I'm going to pass it off to Malcolm for a more detailed picture of how we think about trust and safety at Replit.
Thanks very much, Alan. So let's talk a little bit about what trust and safety is. Trust and safety is actually a fairly new discipline. Internet platforms have always had to set rules and moderate content, but these functions have only recently started to become professionalized and systematized. And Replit's no exception to this. Originally, we relied on a group of volunteer moderators from the community. Today, we've expanded into a professional trust and safety team, which has developed a strong set of tools, policies, and processes to keep our site safe and welcoming. So this slide highlights 3 of the ways that we do that. We develop and review policies about the content and behavior that we allow and disallow on Replit. We maintain the tools and processes to enforce those policies. And when new product features are being developed, we make sure that those product changes include safety and privacy features that are guided by industry best practices. As an example of this safety by design approach, Replit recently added the ability for users to follow each other. So the trust and safety team made sure that the users would also have the ability to block each other. And you'll see an illustration of that on one of our next slides. Next slide, please, Alan. Like any other website that allows users to post content, we are subject to abuse. Before we can combat that abuse, we have to lay down what the rules are. And we do that in our terms of service. This slide summarizes a few of the most important topics that they cover. We try to strike a balance between enabling freedom of expression and creativity, while at the same time keeping the site fun and safe for everyone. We're aware that many of our users are school age, and that's one reason why we have a blanket rule against sex and nudity, for example. But even in this category, our rules are context sensitive. So if you have students doing a class project on Replit featuring Renaissance art, for example, we wouldn't censor the art that they use. The same is true of most of the other categories here: profanity, violent and graphic content, self-harm, which we only recently added, hate speech, bullying, and privacy. If a user infringes these rules, and if they're otherwise well behaved, they'll probably just receive a warning. But if they continue to infringe our rules, we do have the power to suspend or ban them. In a slightly different category is the final item: malware, phishing, spam, etc. These are malicious actions, and so they're more likely to result in an immediate ban. You may think of these as hacking, but I'm going to pass back over to Alan to explain that that's not quite correct. Alan?
Thanks, Malcolm. Yeah, one of the areas that we've been carefully thinking about is how we can best support the spirit of hacking. And as I'm sure you all know, a hacker is not just someone who wears a black hoodie and steals banking information. A hacker can be much more than that. It's someone who thinks outside the box, who uses the resources available to them to create something new. And on a base level, hacking is making a system do something that it wasn't originally designed to do. And Replit is designed for hacking. Through our community, we give students the ability to fork, remix, and build on top of other people's code. So in this vein, we've actually set our moderation policy to allow for REPLs that might even violate another website's terms of service. And this sounds counterintuitive, but what is good for another website might not be in the best interest of our users. So one example of this is LinkedIn, for example, famously doesn't allow for the scraping of its website, even though that's a perfectly legal thing to do in most cases. But if we were to disallow REPLs that scrape LinkedIn, we might prevent students from building a project that's based on job information found on the website. So that's just a little example of some of the nuances that we're thinking about on trust and safety. So now I'm going to pass it back to Malcolm for a review of some of our tools.
Thanks very much again, Alan. So this year, Replit has made more progress to improve trust and safety on our platform than ever before. Here are some of the key improvements that you ought to know about. First, we've made it easier for users to report unsafe content that they come across. The illustration on the right is one example of that. If a user is bothering you or making inappropriate comments on your REPL, you can now report them from their profile with just a couple of clicks, or you can block them so that you don't have to see their content again. We've also made great strides in improving the tools that you can't see, the ones that our moderators use behind the scenes. And we've produced a new moderator training program as well. One of the new tools for moderators enables us to automatically scan images that are uploaded to Replit so that we can catch inappropriate content like pornography. As many of you know, sometimes users try to get around things like content filters by using proxy websites. And we came up with an answer to that too this year with a new version of our website called Firewalled Replit. I'm now going to pass off to my colleague Lincoln to talk about that.
Hello. Thanks, Alan and Malcolm. I'm going to spend just a minute and talk about Firewalled Replit, which is something that we built a month and a half ago, 2 months ago or so. And this is something that a lot of schools, I think, will find very useful as they plan for the next school year. So what is Firewalled Replit? Well, we have tried our best to make Replit as safe as possible without having to make any changes to the product. But we wanted to go even further than that and provide a version of Replit that is totally safe and has no chance of people coming across something that might not be appropriate for them. So to do this, we created firewalledreplit.com. This is a URL you can go to right now, and you can log in with your Replit account. Everything is exactly the same, except for a couple of small changes to make things safer for students and anyone else who might be the audience for this. And those changes are that we block the community feature and the search feature, and most importantly, we block all non-essential network connectivity from within the REPL. And that's kind of a complicated concept. So I just want to dive into that. What does it mean to communicate from within a REPL? So the way Replit works, we have essentially three components that are at play here. On the right, you have your students in a computer lab. This could be anybody. It doesn't have to be students in a computer lab. It could be a kid on a phone or an iPad. It could be anybody who's using Replit from their own computer. Now they may or may not have their own filtering rules for the internet. So if you're at school and you try to visit youtube.com or something like that, it'll probably be blocked depending on your school. I know it was blocked at my schools. And so that's one level of safety, of internet safety, is between the student's browser and the broader internet. Now, in most cases, Replit.com is not blocked. Oh yeah, and so the school filters Lightspeed, GoGuardian, and other parental filters, other tools exist to kind of prevent that connection. Now, so students may also have access to Replit.com. In most cases, Replit.com is unblocked, and Replit is a very powerful tool you can use to learn how to program and to write code. So the way that Replit works is we actually run your code on our servers, and our servers are connected to the internet. And so in certain cases, there are programs that people have set up that use a REPL or a Replit project. They use code running on our servers to connect to the internet and then relay that information back to the students. This is known as a proxy. And this is something that we've always struggled with. It goes against our terms of service to do this, but people always find a way to do it. And so the way that we addressed this was, hit the next slide button. We put a filter called Firewalled mode between the Replit servers and the internet. So what this means is if you're on firewalledreplit.com, the code that's running on our servers has no network access to the broader internet. I say non-essential because there are a very small number of allowed websites, such as npm.org, which is a website for installing JavaScript packages, and other websites that we have vetted and determined to be safe. But broadly speaking, no internet access between even our servers and the internet if you are on firewalledreplit.com. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So all you have to do to use this is you have to unblock a couple of domain names. You can even block replit.com if you find any issues using that, or if that is too permissive for you. But you can unblock firewalledreplit.com, a new domain, as well as firewalledreplit.co, and a subdomain of Replit called cdn.replit.com, which is just necessary for loading the JavaScript assets on the page that make it all work. And everything else is going to be exactly the same on this website. Go to the next slide. I think the next thing for me is a demo. And I pre-recorded this, so let me just share my screen. Okay, I think we should.
Do I have to unshare my screen? I'm not.
Yeah, could you unshare your screen? I think mine is here, but it's not showing up in the main view.
Let's see here. Oh, there's the button.
Okay, everyone's able to see this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to firewalledreplit.com, this is today. This is what it looks like. We have a little explanation showing what it is. If you go to community, it will be blocked. If you click exit firewall mode, I didn't show this, but it will just go to replit.com. And so if that is blocked in your school or on your filter, then that will continue to not work. There's no circumvention there. Everything else works. Learn works. Teams for Education works. The curriculum works, and everything else is exactly the same. So now I'm going to show creating a REPL, which is again, similar process. You just click the button. and it will connect you to a container that's running on our secure servers. And what I'm going to do in this REPL is I'm going to run the Firefox application. So a REPL is really just a computer, right? So you can run any program in a REPL. Anything that you can code, you can run. And we kind of have the machinery to keep this all safe and working. So now if you try to visit a website, any website, I'll expand the screen here, but it won't work. And that's kind of at the network level. We're blocking that traffic. So no matter what code you write, no matter what you do, there's no way to escape that. And the last thing I want to show is just that normal REPLs continue to work. I think the majority of education-related use cases don't actually use most of the internet, other than package installation and teacher-sanctioned educational resources. But if you're just writing some code that takes an input, a function takes an input, calculates a value, and returns an output, that's just code that can all go within the REPL, and you'll have no problems there. So that's all from my end. I'll turn the time back to Alan and Malcolm to finish off our session.
Yeah, thanks. That was an awesome demo. I think we're basically just going to do a Q&A session. If anyone would like to submit their questions through the Q&A function or even just in the chat, feel free to.
This is a good question. Can I use regular Replit while some of my students use Firewalled Replit? So this is kind of a technical limitation on our side. The way that Replit works is when you are running a REPL, there is only one copy of that REPL in the entire world. So if I open a project, if I open a REPL, that is the only container that's running. And what we do is we limit the network access on the container. And so if you are running on Replit.com and you invite students to that same REPL, they will not be able to connect to it because we can't mix those. We kind of thought hard about the user experience here. Our options were to make it so that anyone who uses Firewalled Replit coming in will cause the container to lock down, but we didn't want to open up a denial of service vector for people who might be using regular Replit if someone with a firewall container maliciously comes in and makes their REPL stop working. We thought that would be a bad user experience. I know it's not great not to be able to interrupt between those, but you can use all of the Replit features. It's just that if you're in the workspace connected to the REPL, your students cannot connect to that same REPL from firewalled mode. They can still use other REPLs, other projects, they can do their own things. But if you are in the same REPL, then you cannot, you cannot cross the domains there. If I create a team in regular Replit, can I access the same team from Firewalled version? Yes. Yep, so the underlying database is all exactly the same. You have the same accounts, same teams, same projects, everything. The only thing that's different is the execution engine for those REPLs. If using Firewalled Replit, sorry, I know all the questions are for me, I think. Would students be able to search for pictures on the internet to add to their website projects? So this is kind of goes back to that diagram that I showed at the beginning. If students are on their browser and let's say they're using Google Chrome and they have a tab with replit.com or firewalledreplit.com. Let's say they open up a new tab to go to Google Images or whatever place they're searching for pictures. That depends on your school's content policy. So that interaction on a new tab outside of firewalledreplit.com, we don't have any control over that. So it just depends on what your school allows. The only thing that Firewalled Replit changes is the network actions that you can take within the REPL. Everything else is kind of outside of our control, and that's covered by your school's network administrator.
Is Firewalled Replit free to use, Lincoln?
Yes, free, completely free, free 99. No, it's yeah. No charge for it now, and it's not something we'll ever charge for.
We love free. Well, I think unless anyone else has any last minute questions, we could probably call it and wrap up. And yeah, I don't know, Lincoln, Malcolm, any last words to share?
I'll just say that if anyone has any suggestions or concerns or questions about trust and safety at Replit, you can reach out to the entire team at contact@replit.com, and someone will get back to you.
Yep, and the same goes for if you have any issues with the Firewalled Replit domain. If you have any problems with that, then feel free to send us an email and we'll get it fixed up as soon as we can.
Thanks very much
Awesome.
for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.